Welcome to the rarest checkmate you will ever see. This game features none other than Magnus Carlsen, but not on the winning side. Wait a minute, are you saying Magnus lost the game? Facing the rarest checkmate. How is this video going to be useful for you? The first thing is you're going to learn when it is okay to start randomly attacking your opponent by pushing your h-pawn. Then you're going to learn why Magnus did not castle in this position. And then finally, you're going to see the rarest checkmate of all time. e4, g6, d4 and e6. With the white pieces, Jon Ludvig Hammer, and with black, Magnus Carlsen. In this position, you might be thinking, after g6, the normal move is bishop g7. It is. It's the modern defense. But Magnus wants to go e6. Because the knight is going to come out pretty soon. In this position, I'd probably play c4 or f4. Just get even more space in the center. Magnus. Jon goes knight f3. And after knight e7, now's the time. Now is the moment to just start attacking your opponent. This was the first point I mentioned in the intro. Now it is totally okay for you to go h4 because there is no knight on f6. If there was, and you would imagine there was a knight on this square, then the knight would actually take it. So this is when it's okay to just start launching your h-pawn, h6. Because if you go h5, g5, you lock up the h-file. The rook is not in the game. Also, this bishop is going to find it hard to come in the game. Bishop to f4, lot of central control on the dark squares, along with the h-pawn. Bishop g7, and very good move from Jon Ludvig. Queen d2, stopping Magnus castling. Already, this is actually looking very good for Hammer. So after queen d2, Magnus now strikes, and it's very important you do not take because you allow the knight in the game. If you move the bishop to the wrong square, you castle. Magnus might be okay now. So going back a few moves, Jon chose to get more space with e5. Very good move, restricting Magnus's bishop. c5, Magnus strikes in the center and Jon defends. Connect 4. Beautiful pawn chain here, just continuing to show Magnus's bishop is not good. Knight c6 and now knight a3 because, as you can see from the green arrow, the knight cannot come in the game. So knight a3. Couple of ideas. The knight can just tuck back, or it can even come to b5 to d6. And you can see from the blue arrow, this is the problem for Magnus. And now, this is point number 2 from the intro. Magnus cannot castle. The pawn hangs. So what did he do instead? King f8. He's going to castle by hand. That means you literally just pick up your king. Let's say white plays nothing moves. You pick up your king, and then now the king and the bishop defend it, but also the rook can actually come in the game. Rook here, and it looks like black has castled. It just took him 4 moves. King f8, he can't castle, so he just chose to sidestep. One option was actually to take in the center and then castle, but then I'm pretty sure white is really good here. Knight's coming in, pretty good position for white. So, king f8 played. Is it a blunder? Yes. Magnus just chucked a pawn. And you might be thinking, how can the world champion just miss a pawn capture? He didn't. He sacked the pawn. b6. Opening up lines. Take. The queen is now in the game. The rook can come to b8 to put pressure on the pawn. When I first saw this position, and you might be thinking it as well, why didn't Magnus just go queen a5? Get the pawn back this way. You cannot go b4 because you lose the knight. So why didn't he do it? You can't go here, by the way. Well, I don't think you should because knight takes e5. But you know what? There's a very nice move here. Knight b5. You just cut the coordination from the blue arrow. The queen cannot take the pawn, but what if you go a6? If you come in, then you can take it now. Maybe it's okay. No. Danger levels. You attack my knight. I have to move the knight. Correct? Wrong. b4. I attack the queen. No good squares. It can hang out on a4. I don't really mind. It can go back to d8. Same next move. I'm going to come in. You come to a4. Same next move. The knight is brilliant. Right in the black position. So let's go back a few moves. This was my first thought. Take. Magnus sacked the pawn. Take, take. Bishop d3. Good move. Multi-purpose move. You get the bishop out. You stop the knight coming in. And now you can castle. Bishop a6. A key skill in chess is to understand when to trade pieces. This bishop is better than that bishop. So Magnus trades. Bishop a6. And you're not going to take. Because Jon's plan is to castle. But if you play this capture, you can't castle at the moment. So he keeps attention. b4. He not only keeps attention, he threatens to win a piece. d4. Magnus allows it, right? He fell for it, right? Wrong. Magnus must have an idea. b5. Take. You attack my knight and bishop. I have to move one. I have to save one. Wrong. Take. And now one option is to take. That's the normal move. Queen here. But the best move in this position is actually queen e2. Why? Because you still make sure they're attacked. Both the bishop and the knight. If you play queen a5, which looks like you go after the knight, you just stay calm. You just move the knight back. And now, bishop and knight are still attacked. If we go back a few moves, in this moment, if queen e2, what if knight d4? So many things are being attacked. Take, take. Both bishops are being attacked. Let's save that one. But Magnus keeps attacking the knight. Take, take. What do we have here? Should be a very nice position for white. Two bishops slicing the board. The bishop pair. A thorn in the black position. The king is finding it a bit difficult to get to safety. It's going to take a bit of time to walk over. White's ready to castle. Pretty good position for white. So queen e2 was best. If queen c3, because that looks normal. You just take the pawn. I'm still attacking both your pieces, right? Wrong. Knight d5, double attack. You attack me, I attack you again. Things are getting very complex. Knight d5 hits the queen and the bishop. You can see from the yellow arrow, this option is now open. You can actually take this. But this works out very well for Magnus. The queens can come off. The bishop now sits in. We have 3 minor pieces each. But this looks pretty good. Pretty good for black. Perfect bishop in the center. Octopus knight, as shown from the blue arrows. And the yellow arrows, you can see the rooks can come in the game. Magnus is back in the game. Let's go back a few moves. So this option wasn't chosen. This is possible. But then, captures can happen. Knight b4. That's a great move. Here. Check. Take. This is looking pretty good for black. But queen e3 played. When I saw this move, I thought it was very clever. Knight d5. Pretty cool move. Attacking both queen and bishop. Queen's now come off. If you keep the queen on, it's that same brilliant knight move. Here. Turns out Magnus was never ever in trouble. Turns out he never chucked a piece out of nothing. What a surprise. Knight b4. Here, take, check, and then you take. Totally winning. So Jon decided to trade queens, and still we get this complex situation. Everything's hanging. Everything's been hanging for the last 5 moves. Bishops still hang. Jon now takes. Magnus takes the bishop, hitting both. Another attacking move. You attack the knight. You attack bishop and pawn, but so what? I attack the knight. There's no time to take the pawn, but so what? I can't move the knight, so what? I take the pawn, and both knights are under attack. So knights now come off for both sides. The complications, they have settled, but now what? Jon now plays a very creative move. Castles queenside, all of a sudden setting up a very nice way to save the game. Black is winning here, but if he plays this, black has now chucked it. Black has chucked a draw. This is a perpetual check. White is totally happy now to save the game. You can't go here or else you just lose. The rook. Discovered attack by the bishop. So if we go back a few moves to this moment, Magnus played the correct move, just time to run. Now is the time to remember this was the second key moment in the intro where I mentioned Magnus chose not to castle. Well, things have totally transformed now. Magnus walks the king over and is ready to escape to his death. Check, king h7, and he loses. How did he lose? How can he avoid losing, I mean? Bishop back to f8 is needed. And black has a wonderful position. The king can come up and the bishop can sit on c5. Those are the green arrows. The knight can come into e2 check, looks very dangerous. Take the pawn on c2, and the rook is always a nuisance. That is the red arrow. But he blundered. Thank goodness he blundered, because now we get the rarest checkmate of all time. One of the most beautiful mates of all time. Now's your chance, guys. Pause the video now, or you can just let the timer run. You've got 5 seconds. Can you see how did Hammer time? How did Jon Ludvig Hammer finish off Magnus Carlsen? The first move is knight g5 check. Take, check, game over. When I first saw this position, I thought this was the only move. A little bit silly. Check, and then take. You are up a rook. That's mate. What I did not see was this move. Knight back to h5. And perhaps this is what Magnus thought as well. I mean, he can save the game. The knight just retreats. If you did not pause before, I suggest you pause now. Now's your chance to find a brilliant move. Checkmate in 3. That's the clue, guys. That is the clue. If you can't find it, don't worry. I'm going to show you anyway in 5 seconds. Check. You have to take. The king is going to escape. No, it isn't. Check. And game over. After f5, one of the most beautiful moves of all time. I've just never seen it before in my lifetime. You can en passant with checkmate. And that's why I mentioned in the intro. The rarest type of checkmate is en passant checkmate. That is mate all of a sudden. Be careful. You cannot en passant the other way. The king can actually escape. After f5, Magnus, being a good sport, allowed a beautiful finish. En passant checkmate. Now, it is totally okay for Jon Ludvig Hammer to retire. Let me know in the comments. Is this the best checkmate you've ever seen? If not, let me know. What is the best, the rarest checkmate you've ever seen?